Imagine getting a birthday card for your grandson, knowing he's actually gone taken by his own mother. That's the reality for J.J. Vallow's grandparents, and it's just one piece of this heart-wrenching Lori Vallow case. Today we're diving deep into what happened after her sentencing, trying to understand the how and the why behind actions that are just unimaginable. We've got court statements, those powerful victim impact statements, and an interview with Lori's sister, Summer Shiflett. It offers a glimpse into her, well, I guess, descent into madness. This case hits close to home for a lot of us, the ones who value family and justice. Today we're going beyond the headlines, looking for those deeper insights, the things that make you stop and think.
It's a case that really gripped the nation for sure. That sentencing hearing where Lori got 5 consecutive life sentences. Without parole, that was just the latest chapter in a story that is both baffling and horrifying.
Yeah, it's hard to even process that. 5 life sentences for murdering her own children, 7-year-old J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan, and for conspiring to kill Tammy Daybell, her current husband Chad Daybell's previous wife.
The prosecution built a really compelling case, presenting Lori as this master manipulator, driven by greed and a really warped sense of religious ideology. They laid out the evidence really meticulously, connecting the dots between her actions and her motivations.
And some of that evidence was just chilling. I mean, finding the children's remains buried on Chad Daybell's property is the stuff of nightmares. And then you add the testimony about Lori talking about zombies and dark spirits. It just paints such a disturbing picture of her state of mind.
What's striking is how she seemed to use this belief system to justify what she did by labeling people, even her own children, as dark. She created this narrative where getting rid of them wasn't just acceptable, but necessary. It's terrifying how distorted beliefs can just detach someone from basic human empathy.
Yeah, and hearing those victim impact statements, that really brought it home. Tammy Daybell's sister and her aunt, they didn't hold back. They spoke about the hole left in their lives, about how Tammy, a loving mother and grandmother, was just stolen from them. You could hear the pain in their voices.
Yeah, those statements were powerful. They reminded everyone that this wasn't just some abstract case. These were real people whose lives were shattered. Kay Woodcock's testimony, JJ's grandmother, especially heart-wrenching. She talked about being afraid for JJ's safety long before he disappeared. Like, she sensed something was really wrong.
It makes you wonder if there were signs along the way that people missed. Could something have been done sooner? It's a question that haunts so many cases like this one.
Absolutely. It shows how important it is to recognize those red flags, to step in when we see loved ones exhibiting extreme or dangerous behaviors. A lot of times there are warnings, but they're dismissed or misinterpreted.
And then there's Lori's statement in court. Instead of showing remorse, she maintained she was innocent, claiming no murders happened, saying her children and Tammy Daybell visit her from heaven. It's almost surreal, like she's living in a totally different reality.
Her statement really doubled down on those unusual religious beliefs. She talked about accidents, suicides, medication side effects as explanations for the deaths. It was like a complete rejection of the evidence and a chilling display of delusion.
It makes you wonder how someone can believe something so strongly when it's so clearly contradicted by the facts.
That's the power of a delusion, especially when it's so deeply ingrained. It becomes this lens. You view everything through it, filtering out anything that doesn't fit your beliefs. It's a form of self-preservation, psychologically, but with devastating consequences.
Judge Stephen Boyce wasn't having any of it. His rebuke was scathing. He condemned her lack of remorse and called her out for manipulating the court. He was really forceful, highlighting how horrific the crimes were, especially the condition of the children's remains and the pain inflicted on their loved ones.
The judge's words definitely resonated with people who followed the case. He put into words that collective sense of moral outrage. He emphasized that Lori's actions had consequences, no matter what she believed. It was a powerful statement about accountability and the rule of law.
So how do we even begin to unravel what led Lori down this path? Well, for that, we turn to her sister, Summer Shiflett. In an interview after the sentencing, Summer shared some really crucial information. She revealed that Lori had been showing signs of a delusional disorder as far back as 2017 or 2018.
This is really critical context. It suggests that Lori's actions weren't just pure evil, but likely influenced by a deteriorating mental state. It adds another layer of complexity to an already perplexing case.
Summer described how Lori would share these little bits of information with different family members, almost like she was creating all these separate realities, making it really hard for anyone to grasp the full extent of what she actually believed.
That's pretty common, actually, for people struggling with delusional disorders. They control the information. That way they can build a distorted world that reinforces their beliefs. and deflects challenges from people who care about them. It's a way of isolating themselves in their own narrative.
It's heartbreaking to think about the family, trying to figure out what was going on while Lori just slipped further away.
Speaking of those beliefs, let's get into the specifics of Lori's ideology. It seems like she and Chad bought into a fringe offshoot of Mormonism, one that incorporated apocalyptic prophecies and this whole light and dark spirits thing. Can you explain that a little more?
Yeah, so this belief system, it pulls from traditional Mormon doctrines, but also these more esoteric interpretations, leading to a pretty distorted view of spirituality. It focuses on this coming doomsday, where everyone's categorized as either light or dark, based on their supposed spiritual standing. But it's not based on actions or character. It's Lori's own judgment.
So in her mind, people could be possessed by these dark spirits, essentially turning them into what she called zombies. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
Exactly. The zombies aren't like those undead creatures in movies. It's more that a person's soul or spirit can be taken over by darkness, leaving this empty shell behind. And that's where the danger is. It dehumanizes people, makes them seem expendable. She even gave people numbers
Yeah.
to show their level of darkness. It's just chilling to think about her looking at her own children that way.
Yeah.
What does that say about her state of mind back then?
It shows a complete break from reality and a total distortion of those maternal instincts. To see her own kids as dark spirits suggests a level of detachment and delusion that's hard to grasp. It's tragic, really, how these beliefs can twist even the most basic human bonds.
And this belief system, as messed up as it is, seems to have given Lori a reason for her actions. Like her own personal ideology just overrode any compassion or basic human decency.
That's how these extreme ideologies work. They create a framework. And suddenly people can justify even the most horrific acts, often by making them seem righteous. It's dangerous, a really slippery slope.
Summer also talked about Lori being fascinated by near-death experiences and her belief in having lived multiple lives. It's like she built this whole elaborate reality where she was the central figure in some big cosmic drama.
It sounds like Lori's beliefs. They came from wanting to feel a sense of purpose and significance. This fascination with near-death experiences and past lives, that might have fed into her delusions, making her feel special and chosen, reinforcing that warped worldview.
We can't ignore Chad Daybell's influence in all of this. He was a self-published author, writing about doomsday scenarios and near-death experiences, positioning himself as this spiritual guru. And Lori was clearly drawn to his teachings.
Right. His writings and teachings seem to have really resonated with Lori's beliefs, confirming them and fueling that descent into extremism. And he was charismatic. That probably made her delusions worse and helped her justify her actions.
Witnesses said their relationship was intense, obsessive even, fueled by their shared beliefs. And it can't be a coincidence that both their spouses died mysteriously, not long before Lori's kids disappeared.
The deaths of their spouses raised some serious questions about their relationship and how much their beliefs played a part in what they did. It suggests a pattern of manipulation and maybe violence, something we can't ignore.
It's almost like they built this echo chamber of extremism, feeding off each other's delusions, driving each other down this dangerous path. So this brings us to a really important question. What can we learn from this tragedy? How can we, as individuals and as a society, see these warning signs of extremist ideologies and stop something like this from happening again?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's about teaching people to think critically, to recognize the dangers of leaders who exploit vulnerable people. We need to encourage open dialogue, healthy skepticism, and a willingness to challenge beliefs that are harmful, especially when they promote violence or harm.
Those are really powerful insights. We'll continue exploring them in Part 3. When we dive into the legal side of the case, we'll examine Chad Daybell's trial and the bigger implications for religious freedom and accountability. Join us then for the final part of this deep dive. So we've spent this deep dive looking at all the disturbing details of the Lori Vallow case, from those heartbreaking victim impact statements to the ideology that seemed to fuel everything she did. Now let's kind of shift gears and look at what this means legally. And you know what lessons we can learn moving forward?
Lori getting those 5 consecutive life sentences without parole, that's a huge decision. It shows that the justice system takes these crimes very seriously, holding people accountable even when their motives are wrapped up in delusion.
It does give a sense of closure for the families, even though it's a closure mixed with so much sadness. But like we said, this isn't the end of Lori's legal problems. She's still facing charges in Arizona for the death of her ex-husband, Charles Vallow, and the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux.
Yeah, these upcoming trials are probably going to revisit a lot of what we've talked about. Her possible financial motives, that disturbing belief system. And whether it was all premeditated, the prosecution's going to try to show a pattern of behavior, connecting what she did in Arizona to the crime she's already been convicted of.
Like putting together a puzzle. Trying to see the whole picture of what she allegedly did and why. And then there's Chad Daybell and his trial that's still coming up. What do you think about how his defense might go? Especially now that Lori's been convicted.
That's the big question. His defense team has their work cut out for them. The prosecution is definitely going to use the evidence from Lori's case, trying to show there was a conspiracy, that there was manipulation. They'll probably try to paint Chad as the mastermind, the one behind their shared ideology, saying he influenced Lori and maybe played a bigger part than he's admitted.
I wonder if his defense will be about downplaying his role. Maybe even saying he was also manipulated by Lori.
It's possible. They might try to say he was a follower, led astray by Lori. But all the evidence about his writings and teachings and actions leading up to the deaths, that's going to be hard to ignore. In the end, the jury has to decide if Chad is responsible for these crimes.
This case has gotten everyone talking about the line between religious freedom and accountability. It's a tough one. We can believe what we want, but what if those beliefs make us hurt other people? Where do we draw that line?
It's a balancing act, for sure. And this case really shows that tension. Just because we have the freedom to believe something doesn't mean we're free from the consequences of what we do. When beliefs lead to violence or justify hurting others, that's when they cross the line. From personal faith to criminal behavior.
It also makes you think about religious communities. What's their role in spotting and dealing with dangerous ideologies? How do we encourage critical thinking and accountability while still respecting people's beliefs?
That's so important. It's about promoting healthy skepticism, open conversations, and being willing to challenge harmful teachings, even if they're coming from someone you respect. It's also about seeing the signs of manipulation, noticing when someone's losing touch with reality or getting into extreme views, and doing something about it.
The Lori Vallow case is a scary reminder of how fragile life is and how devastating extremism can be. It makes us look at ourselves as individuals and as a society, and ask how we can protect the vulnerable and stop this from happening again.
It's a question we all need to think about. By having empathy, encouraging critical thinking, and holding each other accountable, we can make a world where these horrible things are less likely to happen.
Yep.
This case is tough to process, but it can be a starting point for important conversations and real change.
This has been a heavy discussion, but an important one. If this deep dive resonated with you, we encourage you to check out the resources in the show notes. And if you appreciate this kind of in-depth analysis, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the stories that matter. Till next time, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.